if you walk into a pub and they've got 4 beers on and it's, Carling, Madry, Foster's and Carlsberg. I mean, I can't remember the last time that did happen, actually, but if you go in, you're going to be like, what is going on here?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the BeerX Chats With. And today I am delighted to be joined again by Neil Walker from the Society of Independent Brewers and Associates and head campaigner for the Indie Beer campaign. Neil, thanks for joining us again, part 2.
No, thanks for having me back. I must not have messed it up too bad the first time. So yeah, you've invited me back for a second time, so I appreciate it.
Yes, it's brilliant to have you back. It's been probably exactly a year, I think, since we last spoke. And
wow, was it really?
A whole year. It's crazy how quick it's gone. It's flown by. So last time we spoke, the Indie Beer campaign kind of just launched, not launched over a year ago. How would you sum up in the last year? What's changed? What surprised you? What's been the biggest win that you can be really proud of since starting?
Yeah, I mean, a lot's happened on Indie Beer. I think the response from breweries has been above and beyond what we were expecting. We're now at around 700 breweries actively enrolled, in support of the campaign.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a long slog. So even, got 700 that are kind of actively involved, enrolled, have said, we support this campaign, want to get behind it. We reckon about 50%, it's hard to gauge sometimes, but we've kind of done some surveying. We reckon about 50% of them have physically got the logo on their kind of cans and bottles as well.
Oh, that's great.
So many of them are using kind of different means of promoting. If you're a bigger independent brewer that's selling into supermarkets and things like that, your cans and labels and things like that, it could be a year ahead that, those designs are going through. So we're still trying to push that through as to why people need to get it on the bottles and cans. But yeah, there's been loads of support. So we've got them using it in tap rooms. We've got kind of pump clip crowners, all that type of stuff. You've sent out kind of new kind of rubber bar runners and things like that. So everyone that's a supporter gets those and can put them in the tap room. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for kind of breweries to get involved. That's been really, really good. We've also got over 100 venues now that have kind of got in touch and are, actively promoting and supporting the campaign. And actually over 500 consumers as well, which is actually, we've not done a big push on kind of consumer sign-ups necessarily, but we've had 500 that have kind of signed up in support, and they're now getting involved on social media, and we're also kind of like doing competitions and things like that with them, so kind of featured brewers of the month. But yeah, it's been fantastic, and the first year or so is always going to be about getting sign-ups, getting supports, getting people using it. And that's gone quicker than I think we could have expected, really.
That's good. It sounds like it's really pushing on, and over since we last spoke, I've seen it personally that it's grown, and obviously you're getting around a lot of, we say with the bar runners, I'm seeing quite a lot of them around now, and a lot of the logos on cans as well, which is great.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm probably in the echo chamber a little bit, so I'm going to be speaking to brewers that are more likely to be engaged with this type of thing. But actually, I think it has cut through to the mainstream quite a bit. I mean, we talked about some of the stats around consumer awareness and things last time around, I think. But actually, we've also been tracking consumer awareness of those global brands. So when we launched the campaign, we did some surveying around which brands they thought were independent, and people were far more likely to think that Beavertown were independent than some genuine independent breweries. We're now seeing that shift. So we're now actually seeing Beavertown drop down, and there's independent brands that are more likely to be chosen, and Camden even more. So Camden Hells has dropped way down, I think to around number 6 or something like that, the 6th most likely that people would select. So I think the campaign's having cut through, and that surveying, we haven't released all of that yet. We kind of use it internally more, but I'm happy to summarize it a little bit here. We're actually it's via YouGov, so it's really a broad church of consumers. These are not people in the beer bubble. These are your average person on the street. So if it's having the put through to them, then that's a real win. And it's another reason why we've really focused on retail as well. So we've launched a partnership with Waitrose. They've now got an indie beer section on the website. So you go to the website, all the indie beers are in one section. You can't have global beers or global owned craft beers in that section. That change of language is hugely important. Rather than having a craft beer section, you've got an indie beer section. And we're supporting that with in-store activation as well. So we're putting a bit of money into actually getting some stuff into the Waitrose stores to kind of signpost it and things like that. But that's great. But actually, I think the thing I'm most proud of with that partnership is it's actually got some sales for members and for people that support the campaign. So Waitrose have got some new listings with independent breweries that they've found via the Indie Beer website. So they've gone on there, found some really great breweries, and they've now started stocking those in Waitrose. So people are actually getting some sales off the back of it. So for me, that gives it some teeth as a campaign, really. It gives some reasons.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, when I saw the launch of you guys getting into Waitrose and having your own section, I just thought that was just a huge shift from separating independent breweries from the ones that pretend to be.
I mean, it gives us control. That's the big thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what you want. And hopefully, you guys are working with other supermarkets to do exactly the same thing. And hopefully, we'll see more of that rolled out to other supermarkets that are selling independent breweries and have their own section, and that'd be great. It will start to make consumers think, oh, why is this section different to this section? And then they'll look you guys up and figure out what's the whole indie beer campaign all about, and then they'll notice and see.
We definitely are having those conversations. We're pretty far down the line with Marks and Spencers, but also with the other kind of big retailers, the big supermarket retailers, not just those kind of more premium supermarket retailers like M&S and Waitrose. We want them all to be involved. The difficulty is genuinely that the global brewers have such a stranglehold on those markets that actually trying to get punched through and trying to get a voice for indie beer in those supermarkets is really, really difficult because you've got people with much deeper pockets than us. What's been great with Waitrose is, they've been really, really supportive of the campaign, and actually a lot of what they've done has not been financial. It's not been, that we've not had to put money in to get that indie beer section created on the website. That's something they felt was right. It was something that they felt aligned with what they're trying to do in their beer range. They're trying to support more local breweries. They're trying to get people to have different beers in one Waitrose, one part of the country to a different part of the country. So it aligned with that. So I think it's as much about trying to get the retailers to understand why this is important as it is to kind of say, well, here's a load of money and here's why you should do it, because we're never going to have as deep pockets as those global brewers. So it's about getting them to understand why they should do it, really.
Yeah, and hope that obviously more supermarkets are on the same wavelength as Waitrose and want to do it because they feel it's the right thing to do. So I mean, it's a great starting point. Obviously now you've got Waitrose to take that forward to other supermarkets, because if Waitrose are doing it, you're missing out. Don't miss out on something that's moving at a really good fast pace.
Yeah. And genuinely, like, from a personal point of view, I've got a Waitrose near me, and you go in there now, and the beer range now is so much better. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they're going to get good sales out of it, and their customers are going to enjoy it as well, which is ultimately what we want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So have you seen, moving from the supermarkets, have you seen like a measurable shift in how pubs or retailers are engaging with the indie beer branding since we talked, or is it still pretty much similar?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's worth mentioning because obviously I talked there about retail, and that's an important part, because I think for a lot of people, the way they get into good beer, the way they discover craft beer, or as we would call it, indie beer from small independent breweries, is through supermarkets. So that's quite a lot of people's first experience with trying lots of different beers. But the vast majority of independent beer is sold via pubs. Looking just, obviously, we've only got data for SIBA members, but looking at SIBA members, it's about 70% is sold via pubs. So pubs are really, really important. And actually, we've found since launching the campaign, we've had a lot more active engagement from pubs. So from lots of independent pubs wanting to support the campaign. As I say, there's over 100 venues that have now signed up in support of the campaign, are actively enrolled. We're sending them out posters, as much as we can do on our budgets, we're trying to do for free for those venues. But we're also working with some of the pub companies as well. So we, through SIBA, do some stuff with selling independent beer into pub companies. So trying to get some guest beer into pubs. And actually, during Indie Beer Week, we're going to be working with 100 of those kind of top pubs, so the pubs that sell the most independent beer. And again, trying to send them out some point of sale material, get them some bar runners, all that type of stuff, because we know that pubs are the most important route to market for independent beer. It's just difficult and it's expensive. There's a lot of pubs. We've only got limited budgets, so it's how we can get pubs engaged without it, costing us a fortune. Because, hate to kind of keep banging the same drum, but we do not have the as deeper pockets as Madry and the global brewers. So anywhere in which we can get involved, and a big thing actually, I think, has been social media. So I think as a relatively grassroots campaign, engaging with pubs on social media, engaging with venues, doing featured venues and featured bottle shops and all that type of stuff on our social media, that's been huge. Some of the engagement we've been getting through that has been way higher than anything we've done with breweries even, because I think when you engage with a really good local pub, it's quite often the only good pub of that type in that area. So it's got a really, really active audience of people. It's got people who really, really love that venue. So when we engage with it, actually, we see loads and loads of reach on that. So yeah, we're trying to do as much of that as possible, just to get the message out there.
Yeah, it's the hashtag indie beer. It's trending.
Yeah, well,
if hashtags are even working these days. I mean, I'm getting so many mixed things from people saying, "Oh, hashtags are dead, hashtags blah blah blah," but that's the way it's used. The hashtag indie beer all the time.
Yeah, I kind of just edge my bets and put it on there, and hopefully it's going to work a bit. But I think the way that people engage with the social media platforms has changed massively as well. As you say, I mean, in Instagram now, it's all about the reels, but more so the stories as well. So that's what we're trying to do.
People want to hear them sort of stories from independent breweries, and basically this is what my podcast is all about: speaking to independent breweries and founders and brewers and of all sorts, and getting their story out, because I think that's the most important thing an independent brewery has in their arsenal is their story, because it's always going to be different to everyone else's.
No, 100%. And yeah, we're trying to be where the beer consumers are, and getting on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all that type of stuff. So yeah, we're trying, but there's a lot of places to be, I suppose.
Obviously, you spoke to a lot of your members, a lot of conversations with them. Has the sentiment improved around access to market and profitability, or are those still pressures that are really dominant for independent breweries at the moment?
Honestly, yeah, they are. They are still the kind of number one pressure. Those two pressure, the kind of number one, number two, however you want to look at it. It's still really difficult for small breweries. We've still, not heard the outcome of the government's review into access to market. So they promised to kind of review access to market. They did a consultation, which obviously lots of trade associations put into, including SIBA, which is one of the organisations behind Indie Beer. We put into that, but we're yet to hear the results of that. The minister has not announced what they're going to do. So it's still really tough. And while the market is being again dominated by those global brewers who are controlling taps, controlling what beer's sold in pubs, it's going to be tough for small breweries. I mean, I think I talked last time around kind of market share for independent beer, which is about 7%. So if you imagine you've got these 1,500 breweries in the UK, all fighting for 7% of the market share. And then you've got those remaining, 3, 4, whatever, global brewers with the rest of it. So it just shows you how far we've got to go. We want market share for independent beer to be 20, 30%.
Yeah. Has it gone up from 7% or is it exactly the same?
We think it has. It's difficult. We'll know more later this year. We've got some kind of other surveying going on and things like that. But I think it has improved, but there's still a long, long way to go. We've also seen a bit of, obviously there's been lots of brewery closures as well, and that affects the stats, but that's not how we want to get there. We don't want to get to a
lot of pub closures as well. So, I mean, if they're owned by globally owned pubcos, then that will obviously increase the percentage because there'll be less of them sort of pubs around.
Yeah, and you know what? Ultimately as well, it's not just about we want this because it's good for independent breweries. It's actually good for pubs as well. So, pubs that sell a range of beers, pubs that sell independent beers alongside kind of mainstream beers. So it's absolutely fine. If you want to have, you've got loads of specialist pubs, and that's brilliant. And we want to support that, of course. But an average pub should have a range of independent beers alongside global beers as well, because that is what people want. If people go in and they see the same brands that they can see absolutely everywhere, then they're going to get.
You can also get in the supermarkets for a lot cheaper as well.
Exactly. So giving people a range of options, and also we'd argue that if you've got a group of people where some of them like cask beer, some of them like independent keg beer, whatever, and you've got the other half of the group that drink kind of mainstream beers or like a Guinness or whatever, it's probably going to be the people that like the independent beer and like the cask beers. They're going to choose what pub you go to. So pubs need to have a range of both. And if you want to attract a diverse range of customers, you've got to have some options. So yeah, it's a good thing for all, really. I always find it amazing that, you got pubs talking about locally sourced food and handmade burgers and all this type of stuff. You look on the bar and the beer's from Denmark and America, which just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to preach about doing local food, you also do local beer. I mean, at least stock for the pubs that are in the area. At least stock from breweries that are local to you.
Yeah,
within a certain mile radius or something within of the pub. That's the very least every pub should be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously at the moment they're tired by these big pubcos to only purchase what the pubcos are giving them to purchase, and at probably a higher price as well. But obviously you said you're one of the guys. Obviously, SIBA and Indie Beer Campaign is one of the bodies that are giving advice to the government on access to market. But obviously these other organisations are very much with the globals and the pubcos. How hard is that for you guys to, make independent beer in these pubs a priority when the other organisations are kind of pushing back, I guess, because of their supporting other places as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as we're a member. SIBA is a membership organisation. We represent independent breweries of all kinds, and we represent actually non-members as well. We're in government, fighting on behalf of members and non-members as long as they're independent. So that's what we're all about. And other trade associations have got even more diverse memberships. So they will have some kind of smaller or medium-sized breweries, and then they'll have global breweries that are involved, and also pub companies and pub owners and things like that. So they've got to do what's best for their membership. And there is some kind of differing of opinion between the different trade associations, but SIBA certainly is the only one that's representing purely independent brewers. That's what we're all about. I'd argue that CAMRA are pretty much aligned with us on the vast majority of things. They represent beer drinkers and consumers. Ultimately, their members drink the beers that SIBA's members make. So I think we're pretty much aligned. But yeah, there's lots of differing opinions. But what I would say is that I think the industry has got better at, and by the industry, I mean, all those trade associations together has got better at trying to find where the common ground is. Trying to find what do we agree on? What are the things which are not controversial? Where can we work together? Because that's where you get real change, is finding where there's a common ground and what you can work together. Ultimately, we want a thriving pub market. Now, we might disagree on, what the split of independent beer and global beer is, or how we talk about that or whatever, but ultimately we all want busy pubs, we want thriving breweries.
Option as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually, I think pub companies do understand that they need to have some diversity, they need to have some range in there, much in the same way as the supermarkets do. I mean, we've got much better range of independent beer in supermarkets than we did 10 years ago, like way better.
100%.
And I think it's coming through in pubs as well. I think the expectation from a consumer is so much higher. If you walk into a pub and they've got 4 beers on, and it's Carling, Madry, Foster's and Carlsberg. I mean, I can't remember the last time that did happen, actually, but if you go in, you're going to be like, what is going on here?
Yeah, but then you'll walk out, go to another pub and see exactly the same lineup. And it's, it benefit the pubcos to allow independent beer to be ordered by their tenants, simply because it'll make that pub more unique to the other pubs, because every other pub would be selling different independent beer. Yes, they might all have the same global beers, but they'll have different independent beers, and then that'll make them unique.
Yeah, and I think also, I think one of the most important parts of the Indie Beer campaign, and what it's aimed to do, and what I think it has done to a large extent, is changing the language a little bit and simplifying it. So we've kind of messed around in the industry for 10, 20 years trying to wrestle with what's craft, what dependent, well, this is cask and this is keg and actually it doesn't matter. And having a really clear message about, well, these are global beers and these are independent beers. These are owned by independent, relatively small breweries of all kinds. So it doesn't matter if it's cask, keg, bottle, can, whatever the style. It can be British bitter, it can be, sour beer, American IPA. That isn't the point. And actually, I think that craft beer and that side of things was a bit of a distraction for a long time. So having indie beer and having something which is really clear, it means it's a relatively small, independent British brewery. That's made it a lot easier with politicians and with government. We can really clearly say what we're talking about and what we're not talking in a really simple way. And I think that's been massively beneficial. We've certainly seen the language around beer change. And I mean, pointing again to Waitrose, they were like, oh, actually, we've realised now that we're not talking about craft beer here. This isn't our craft beer range because we've got, we've got really traditional, old school kind of bitters in here, but they're from local breweries.
You can argue that everything's craft, though, can't you? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all made by a brewer at the end of the day.
Definitely, and the argument that something like Harvey's, is not a craft beer, and I think I said this along the lines. But it just doesn't stand up. So I think talking about indie beer, talking about independent brewing, that's the thing to do, and that's what we've been doing. And I think the voice in government, via SIBA and certainly with the indie beer campaign backing it as well, has never been stronger. That they are listening, and we are making representation as strongly as we possibly can. But yeah, as you say, there's lots of other parties involved. There's lots of other changes in government and things like that don't help either. We've got a lot of turmoil in government. We've had recent changes on things like business rates, which were
business rates. Increase national insurance, all that stuff.
Exactly. And, the representation from bodies like SIBA, got that reversal, got that change. So we're definitely having an effect, but it's still tough out there for independent breweries.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely tough before Labour got into government. And access to market was obviously a big thing, but now with the business rates and everything on top, it's just making everything even harder. And it's just like you're fighting a never-ending battle. It's just you go for one thing and then they pile on something else to make it even harder for you guys. So BeerX just around the corner on March 18th, which is literally will be a couple of days after this podcast gets released. What can brewers and retailers expect this year? What's different?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's UK's biggest, really. So it's the UK's biggest beer and brewing trade event. It was our biggest in terms of attendance last year. So we had 3,500 people.
So good.
In Liverpool. It was buzzing, and everything is on track to match or hopefully beat that this year. I think there's loads and loads of highlights. When I think about what's going on this year, it's definitely our most packed content schedule. So it's the most seminars, most tastings, most talks, panels that we've ever done. We've got that across 3 stages now, all of which have increased in size. Our tasting theatre now is for 100 people. So that makes it the biggest kind of tutored tasting happening anywhere in the UK. I mean, in terms of like highlights for this year, it's probably too many. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you 3 for each day. So I'll give you a tasting, a panel, and a keynote for each day. So in terms of the Wednesday, there's a really good one with Annabelle Smith. So Annabelle Smith, she works for Castmark. She also works for the Guild of Beer Sommeliers. Really, really experienced kind of beer educator and lecturer, I suppose, on beer. She's doing a really, really interesting one about kind of classic British beer styles. So obviously tasting some of those beers, but giving a bit of a history as to why certain beer styles emerged, why certain beer styles fell away, why India Pale Ale is still around and why that emerged, but also looking into some lesser known styles, and also a bit of tasting of some kind of recreation of historic styles as well. So I think it's going to be quite a narrative kind of tasting session as well. She's going to be giving a kind of narrative history of beer. I think that'll really, really interesting. Also on the Wednesday, there's going to be a panel with Matt Curtis from Pellicle and Katie Mather from Pellicle as well, and some other representatives from other publications. I think we've got some guys from Ferment and Tim Sheehan from Brewers Journal. And they're doing a piece on the state of beer media. So kind of where beer media is in the UK, how brewers can get involved, what's going on in the beer industry in terms of writing, podcasting, broadcasting, all that type of stuff. So I think that'll be a really interesting one for brewers. We've then got the first of our headliners. So we've got a headliner with Sacha Lord, who's the chair of the Nighttime Industries Association. He's doing a kind of kind of like a fireside chat, really. So we've got our chief executive, Andy's going to be on stage with Sasha doing a kind of Q&A, which I think will be a little bit different for a keynote. So he's doing that. Then on Thursday, we've got Pete Brown is returning to do his beer and music matching. So he did this a couple of years ago, and it's the one that we get requested most. So we get people asking, are you going to be doing this again? We've left it for a few years, but now he's launched his book. So he's got his tasting notes book. So he's got a lot more beers that he's got pairings for now. So he's going to be coming back doing some different ones, and he's going to be doing that this time around, actually exclusively with kind of UK independent breweries and some of their beers. So that'll be really good.
Is he hosting the business awards as well, isn't he?
He is, yeah. So he's going to be, we're keeping him busy. So he's going to be hosting the business awards.
Earn your money, Pete.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. His business awards on the first night, and then the beer awards, indie beer awards on the second night. And those indie beer awards as well, it's the first national indie beer awards. So it's we have a full kind of year of regional independent beer awards, which start in April and then run around to BeerX in March. So this is the first national one. So really, really excited for that. What else have we got? We've also got a really good panel about kind of investment in the beer sector. So is the beer sector worth investing in? So that's going to be with Christine Barden from eKeg, who are one of our headline sponsors. He's joined by James Allison from Napfin Solicitors, kind of beer industry specialist solicitors, and also John Westlake from the Camera Investment Club. So they kind of invest in breweries. He's going to talk about what they look for investment, and Christian's going to talk about kind of presenting investment. Obviously, with eKeg that required lots of investment and lots of kind of building of that company. So yeah, he's got some really good experience on that, and looking forward to that. And we've also got a kind of double headliner this year. So we've got two keynotes, and we've got Bart Watson from the Brewers Association. He's the new, I think it's president, they refer to it as, very American. So president of the Brewers Association, going to be talking about the kind of US beer market and independence, and giving us a look across the pond. So that'll be good as well.
Yeah. See what they're doing. So obviously they're having a bit of a fin over there as well, with independent breweries closing down as well. So
definitely. I think they've got, I don't want to make too many parallels in political terms, but I think they've got certainly political turmoil in America at the moment. And I think the most difficult thing about that, it's not about which political party are in power. It's just about the kind of being able to predict what's going to happen. And I think the problem they've got at the moment in America is, we're having conversations with the Brewers Association. This is what they're saying, is that it's just hard to know what's coming. It's hard to know if tomorrow something's going to change. And
very unpredictable.
Quite a bit of, very unpredictable, and that makes it really difficult to run a business. If you're looking to start doing exporting, or you're looking to, with the American system, selling between states is almost like exporting, because they have just such different rules. And if you're a business that's looking to sell even across states in America, then that unpredictability is really difficult. So be interesting to see his thoughts on that, actually. And I think there'll be some really good questions from the audience. We're trying to have some questions from the audience as well. It is actually taking place, that second keynote, as part of the SIBA AGM. So he's kind of our special guest, and we'll be kind of talking during the SIBA AGM. So the audience is going to be full of brewers that are there for the AGM. So yeah, be interesting to get his thoughts.
Great, awesome. So for any breweries attending for the first time, how can they maximise this opportunity?
I'd say two things. I think the first thing is to bring your whole team. So BeerX, we try to be as eclectic as possible in terms of the sessions that we do. So we hope that there'll be something for your social media manager, but we equally hope that there'll be something for the CEO. We've got talks about succession planning and, building a business across generations, as much as we've got stuff about, branding and marketing and that sort of thing. So if you can, bring your whole team. We took a stance a couple of years ago to continue doing free tickets. So after COVID, we offered free delegate tickets, and we actually saw delegate numbers go up. But we also saw people bringing their whole teams as a result of that. So if you're lucky enough to have 8, 9, 10, whatever, 15 members of staff, then get them along to BeerX, because there's a lot happening and there's a lot there. And in terms of free training for your whole team, you couldn't ask for a better environment, really. And then the second one is download the BeerX app. So I believe there's an update going through on that this Friday. So if you check it now, there might be some stuff which is out of date. It might be some last year's one, but the updates are going through this Friday, I believe. So yeah, download that app. It's got all of the information about the seminars that are taking place, the fringe events, all of the beers are on there as well. So there's a really good kind of beer finder app. You can filter by the different regions. You can save beers, all of that stuff. So it's really, really useful. So to make the most of the event, definitely download that. It's a completely paperless event, so we don't have a printed program. So in order to like know what's going on, we do have kind of digital signs outside the kind of stages and things, but the best way is honestly via the app or via the BeerX website.
Yeah, definitely. And one big positive is the Indie Beer Awards will be back again this year at BeerX. And one thing that's new is they get entry into the World Beer Cup. Like to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really proud of that, actually. I think it's great. We've got 15 breweries that are going to be in the World Beer Cup this year from the UK. So they were SIBA Indie Beer winners. Now going forward to Philadelphia. I think it's partly about export. So, you kind of putting yourself on the international stage, and you're putting yourself up for awards. And if you're a brewery that's looking to export into America or to other places, that's going to be really helpful. But more than that, I think it's about bigging up independent beer and British beer particularly. Some of the best beer in the world in any style is being brewed in the UK right now. So, I mean, how amazing would it be if one of our brewers goes to America and, beats the Americans in...
It would be, wouldn't it?
Or, that makes the best West Coast Pilsner, or,
Imagine that, yeah.
That would be absolutely amazing. And I think that's what it's about. It's about showing the breadth and depth and quality of British beer. So we want to do that, and we want to make it easier for breweries of all sizes, so independent breweries of all sizes, to be able to do that. So the Indie Beer Awards are kind of funding those entries. So we pay the entry fees, we handle the logistics, and make sure that it's as easy as possible so that those breweries can be represented on that international stage. And, the way we look at it is you kind of, win in the UK, then you go on to the World Cup. And equally with Germany. So we're doing the same thing with European Beer Star in Germany. Now that's a competition which definitely, it's an international competition, so they get entries from all over the world, but it's really heavily entered by Germany and by the kind of European countries. So it's dominated by lager styles. So really, really amazing. And I've judged there for a couple of years. It's a brilliant competition. But the depth and the quality of those lager styles particularly, and the kind of European styles, is amazing. So again, if we've got British brewers making some brilliant lagers, people like Utopian.
Utopian. I was literally thinking of Utopian straight away with their styles.
They can punch with the best. So
and using British ingredients as well. It's like,
I don't know how.
Makes it even better.
Absolute wizards. I don't really know how they do it, but if they get obviously European Beer Star and win best Czech Pilsner or win best Munich style Helles, how good is that going to be?
Their Dortmunder is amazing. I do like their Dortmunder.
Exactly. And obviously, don't get me wrong, it's going to be amazing if we go over there and we win the English Porter category, because they do have.
Well, we should do.
And you'd hope we would. Yeah. So I mean, we and I think representation of those types of beers is. I mean, I've not actually judged at World Beer Cup. I am going to be judging this year, which I'm really looking forward to. So I'm going to be
brilliant. I'm jealous of mine that you're going to Philadelphia.
I got the invite. I've been trying to get an invite for a couple of years, but I've finally got it this year. Really looking forward to that. But European Beer Star, which I have judged at, the quality of the beers is really excellent across the board. Maybe a little bit disappointing on the kind of English styles, because I think that's because a lot of English breweries just don't enter. We have a lot of competition in the UK. There's loads of Canberra competitions going on, loads of other kind of independent competitions, that you pay to enter and things like that. Things like Great Taste Awards and stuff like that. So there's plenty of competitions in the UK already. So I think a lot of people and brewers in the UK don't really look at those international competitions, but they should, because actually, they could dominate in some of those English categories, I think. Our British bitters and our English style porters and all that type of stuff, we are definitely the best at brewing those beer styles. I've tasted beers from all over the world, and nobody does British beer styles as good as Britain. I'd argue nobody does as German lager as good as the Germans, but I think we're trying. It's something, I'm really excited about. And whether we win anything or not doesn't really matter, but hopefully we do.
Yeah, it's about taking part and getting as many British breweries out there as possible in the competing, really.
And also that benchmarking yourself. So, I mean, entering these competitions, it isn't just about the awards, it's about the feedback. I mean, the quality of the judging at these types of awards is phenomenal. So, you'll have a judging table, which is, beer sommeliers and master cicerones and master brewers. And that's about it, 4 to 6 of those around a table. So if you're sending in a beer and you want to know whether it is to style, whether it's what the issues are with it, what's great, what needs improving, you're going to get that feedback as well. So I think that in itself is hugely valuable. And then if it does really well and wins an award, then that's a cherry on the cake.
Yeah, definitely. Cask is picking up a bit across the water as well than over the US. I think a lot more people are doing cask beer.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to protect it in the UK as well. I mean, I think we need to talk it up. There's been a lot spoken about cask beer and it having an image problem or it not be appealing to younger people. That has not been our experience at all with the Indie Beer campaign and through SIBA. Actually, it's having a lot of cut through to younger people. Now, that could be price orientated a little bit. So we've got an inkling, because cask beer tends to be a cheaper beer than some other beers. That's having a bit of cut through, but we've actually seen it increase. So the amount of younger people drinking cask, we've seen it increase. And more generally about cask, I think the narrative that cask beer is in decline, it is true if you only look at the national beer brands. So if you only look at Doombar and that's available everywhere, then volumes are probably dropping. But actually, amongst independents, we saw 10% growth last year. And like I said, we've got our figures coming out again in April, so hopefully that'll have increased or will have maintained. But cask volumes increased. So it's not that people are tired of cask, it's people that are tired of the same old tired cask. They want interesting cask beer from local breweries. And talking about it and promoting it as an amazing British product. I love what the Craft Beer Channel did with stuff around the kind of UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. I know they weren't quite successfully what they originally set out to do, but I think kind of building on that and continuing to grow that and talking about cask beer as being this amazing, uniquely British thing, and not in a sense of kind of jingoistic, kind of like, oh, it's all about Britain. Just we've got this amazing product which we need to be proud of.
It should be heritage. I mean, it's something that was uniquely done in Britain and not anywhere else, and it's become a big part of British history and culture.
Yeah, and I think it shows a maturity in the industry as well. I think there was again, going back to what we were talking before about kind of like, craft versus cask and all that type of stuff. I think that's not there anymore. I think people understand that actually it's about format. If you've got a really nice mild, or you've got a British bitter or a porter or something like that, it's probably going to taste better on cask. So put it on cask. If you've got a 7% American IPA, it's probably going to taste better on keg. So do it on keg. And I think breweries are realising that, and actually people go into a tap room are expecting there to be a mix of cask and keg. So I think those breweries like Neil Raptor, and I was at Cloudwater recently, and Track as well, which is on the same kind of industrial estate as Cloudwater, and they're doing both because that's what consumers want. And beers taste different. I love Sonoma, which is Track's kind of, I think it's 3.8% kind of session IPA style, pale ale style. And it's delicious, but it tastes totally different on cask and keg. Both are equally good, but they're very, very different beers. One on cask is kind of smooth and lighter and kind of more drinkable in a sense, but then the keg version is more refreshing and kind of brighter, and you get more of that kind of top note hop character. So it's about the format. It's about the beer fitting the format, really. I mean,
CO2 obviously does enhance that hop flavour, especially the dry hopping side of things. So some great cask, and again, it's the same access to market. If we can get more of these independent cask beers into pubs just as much as the keg side, it's only going to be benefiting the consumer to have great cask beer, and obviously, like we said, not get tired and bored of the same old cask that's no longer independently owned. So moving on, we'll finish off with this final question. If for breweries that haven't engaged with BeerX or SIBA or Indie Beer campaign, what would you say to them?
I mean, talking about, I'll do SIBA first. We kind of covered BeerX a bit, so I won't go on that too much. But if you haven't already, go get your tickets for BeerX. But SIBA, We, as I said before, we represent independent breweries. We're the only voice that solely represents independent breweries. We also do, we have members and supplier associate members who are like hop companies and brewery fabricators and all that type of stuff. So suppliers to independent breweries. But ultimately, we're all about independent beer, independent breweries. So if you want to have a voice, if you want to have access to the latest information, if you want to have tools and advice which is up to date and which is specifically about your business, about independent breweries, then SIBA is the only place to get that. And it's incredibly good value for a small brewery. It's a couple of £100 a year for the smallest breweries, and it goes up slightly in terms of like the brewery size. It's really fair, and you can get benefit from day one. Some of those member benefits like Napthans and the LTC portal, they genuinely are worth joining for that alone. An hour's legal help for free as many times throughout the year as you want, that can save your business. So if you're struggling, then join. If you want to get involved in the awards, and join. You get free entry into the Indie Beer Awards as a SIBA member. Non-SIBA members can also enter those awards, but they have to kind of pay to enter those awards. So again, if you're going to be entering, it makes sense to be a member because it's free to get into those awards. So yeah, it's a really, really great way to kind of build your business and to join the independent beer industry properly and have a voice. So yeah, if you haven't done already, I would really encourage people to join SIBA on Indie Beer Week. So it's our second one. So we did our kind of inaugural Indie Beer Week last year, and it's around the same time this year. So it's the 10th to the 19th of April this year. Kind of takes in 2 weekends. So it's kind of Friday to the following Sunday, so 2 weekends, 10th to 19th of April. And really, what we're looking for is a celebration of independent beer across the whole of the UK. So whether it's tap takeovers or meet the brewer events or kind of special releases or tastings or beer festivals, we want every single venue in the UK that's selling independent beer, every single brewery that's producing independent beer to get involved during Indie Beer Week. If you send that through via the website, so there's an event submission form on the website. So if you go to indiebeer.uk, and you can sign up on there, and we're going to be listing all those events in the run up to Indie Beer Week. But probably even more importantly, by signing up and submitting your event on there, we're going to be doing loads and loads of regional press releases. So just before Indie Beer Week, we're going to be sending press releases all over the UK, kind of featuring the kind of 9 regions that we break the country up into, and saying Indie Beer Week's happening. Here's all the events that are happening in your area. So we're going to be trying to drive local people to these pubs, to these tap rooms, to these breweries and things like that. So yeah, if you haven't already, get behind Indie Beer Week. We're going to be pushing it as hard as we possibly can. And like I say, we're going to be featuring 100 different pubs with the ones that we're kind of sending stuff to, but even more than that, we're going to be sending it to every single brewery that's supporting the campaign. So yeah, it's the best way to get involved in the Indie Beer campaign coming up in the next couple of months. So yeah, have a look.
And if you're a consumer and you can't get to any of these events, please purchase some independent beer and celebrate Indie Beer Week by having a drink at home.
Absolutely, yeah. So give us a shout out on Instagram, and we'll be sharing it, or on TikTok as well. We're going to be sharing stuff on there. So yeah, give us a shout out, drink some Indie Beer at home, and get involved in the week.
Hashtag Indie Beer Week.
Yes, yeah, Indie Beer
That's
Week.
the one. Well, that's a perfect ending to the episode. Neil, thank you again for coming back on the show. I must have done something right the first time. So.
No, my pleasure. I'm always happy to talk on this. So yeah, we'll do the trio and we'll talk about something else next time. But yeah, that was great, mate. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you at BeerX in a couple of days after this release. Until a couple of weeks' time, we'll see you back again soon. Thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow whatever platform you listen to the podcast on. And we'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.